The sterile fluorescent lights of St. Mercy Hospital buzzed faintly overhead, casting a cold, unyielding glow over the bustling emergency room. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic, mingling with the faint metallic tang of blood. Nurses in scrubs moved with purpose, their shoes squeaking against the polished floors as they hurried from one patient to the next. The emergency room was a symphony of controlled chaos, monitors beeping, voices calling out orders, and the occasional cry of pain or fear. In the center of it all was Emily Carter, a 32-year-old woman whose life was about to change forever. Emily had been admitted earlier that morning, her contractions coming closer and closer together. She had been in labor for nearly 12 hours, and the exhaustion was evident on her face. Her husband Daniel sat nervously by her side, clutching her hand as if his grip alone could keep her grounded. His knuckles were white from the pressure, but he didn't dare let go. Emily's face was pale, beads of sweat forming on her forehead as she breathed through another wave of pain. Her dark hair clung to her skin, damp and disheveled, and her eyes were squeezed shut as she focused on the rhythm of her breathing. The baby was coming, and there was no stopping it now. But something was wrong. The monitors beside Emily's bed began to beep erratically, their shrill alarms cutting through the room like a knife. The steady, reassuring sound of the baby's heartbeat, which had been a constant comfort to Emily and Daniel, was now replaced by a frantic, irregular pattern. Emily's blood pressure was plummeting, and her heart rate was spiking dangerously high. The baby's heartbeat, once strong and steady, was now faint and irregular, a faint flicker on the monitor that seemed to be fading with each passing second. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the lead obstetrician on duty, rushed to Emily's side, her sharp eyes scanning the readouts. Her face, usually calm and composed, was etched with concern. She had seen complications before, but this was different. Emily's condition was deteriorating rapidly, and there was no time to waste. "We need to get her into the OR now," Dr. Mitchell barked, her voice firm and commanding. The team sprang into action, wheeling Emily's bed down the hallway at a breakneck pace. Daniel followed close behind, his face a mask of fear and confusion. He wanted to ask what was happening, but the words caught in his throat. All he could do was watch as the love of his life was rushed into surgery, the doors swinging shut behind her with a finality that made his stomach churn. Inside the operating room, the atmosphere was tense. The bright overhead lights illuminated the room in a harsh, clinical glow, casting long shadows on the walls. Dr. Mitchell and her team worked quickly, their movements precise and deliberate. Emily's condition was critical. She had developed a rare and life-threatening complication known as placenta accreta, where the placenta grows too deeply into the uterine wall. The risk of hemorrhage was extremely high, and time was running out. "We're losing her," Dr. Mitchell said grimly, her hands moving swiftly to control the bleeding. The surgical team worked in silence, their faces focused and determined. The sound of the monitors filled the room, a constant reminder of the fragile balance between life and death. "We need to make a decision. Now." The weight of those words hung heavy in the air. The unthinkable had become a reality. They could try to save Emily, but doing so would almost certainly mean losing the baby. Or they would focus on delivering the baby, but Emily might not survive the procedure. It was a choice no one should ever have to make. Daniel was brought into the room, his face ashen as Dr. Mitchell explained the situation. His heart felt like it was being ripped in two. How could he choose between his wife and his unborn child? Tears streamed down his face as he looked at Emily, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. He leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers, and whispered, "I love you. Please stay with me." Dr. Mitchell's voice broke through the moment. "Daniel, we need your consent. We don't have much time." He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "Save her, please, save her." The team moved quickly, their focus now entirely on Emily. But just as they began the procedure, something extraordinary happened. The baby's heartbeat, which had been faint and irregular, suddenly stabilized. It was as if the tiny life inside Emily was fighting just as hard as she was. "Wait," Dr. Mitchell said, her eyes widening in disbelief. "The baby's vitals are improving. We might have a chance to save them both." The room seemed to hold its breath as the team adjusted their approach. They worked tirelessly, their hands moving with a precision born of years of training and experience. Minutes felt like hours as they battled to stabilize both Emily and the baby. The tension in the room was palpable, every second stretching into eternity as they fought against the odds. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the tension in the room began to ease. Emily's bleeding was under control, and the baby's heartbeat was strong and steady. Dr. Mitchell let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding and turned to Daniel with a small, relieved smile. "They're both going to be okay, monsieur," she said, her voice filled with a quiet awe. Daniel sank to his knees, overwhelmed with emotion. He couldn't believe it. Against all odds, both his wife and his child had made it through. It was nothing short of a miracle. As Emily was wheeled into recovery, Daniel stayed by her side, never letting go of her hand. The baby, a beautiful baby girl they named Lily, was placed in Emily's arms. She was tiny but perfect, her little fingers curling around Emily's as if to reassure her that everything was going to be all right. Emily's eyes fluttered open, and she looked down at her daughter, tears streaming down her face. She was weak, but the love she felt for her child gave her strength. The days that followed were a blur of tests and checkups, but Emily and Lily grew stronger with each passing hour. The hospital staff marveled at their recovery, calling it nothing short of miraculous. Dr. Mitchell, who had seen her fair share of medical miracles, couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at what had transpired. For Emily and Daniel, the experience was a stark reminder of how fragile life could be. They had come face to face with the unthinkable, and yet they had emerged on the other side, their family intact. As they looked down at their sleeping daughter, they knew that they had been given a second chance, a gift that they would never take for granted. The story of Emily and Lily spread quickly through the hospital, a beacon of hope in a place where hope was often in short supply. Nurses and doctors alike found themselves inspired by the young family's resilience and the miracle that had brought them through the darkest of times. As Emily and Daniel prepared to leave the hospital, they were surrounded by the staff who had fought so hard to save them. Dr. Mitchell stood at the forefront, her usual stoic demeanor softened by the smile on her face. "Take care of each other," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "And remember, you've been given a second chance. Don't waste it." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face as she hugged the doctor tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." As they walked out of the hospital, the sun shining brightly overhead, Emily and Daniel felt a sense of peace wash over them. They had faced the unimaginable and come out the other side stronger and more united than ever before. And as they looked down at their daughter, they knew that their lives would never be the same. The journey ahead would not be without its challenges, but they were ready to face them together. They had been given a miracle, and they were determined to make the most of it. For Emily, Daniel, and little Lily, this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter filled with love, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. As the days turned into weeks, Emily and Daniel settled into their new life as parents. Lily grew stronger with each passing day, her tiny features becoming more defined. She had her mother's eyes and her father's smile, a perfect blend of the two people who loved her more than anything in the world. But the memory of that fateful day in the hospital never left them. It was a constant reminder of how quickly life could change and how precious every moment truly was. They made a promise to each other to never take anything for granted, to cherish every laugh, every smile, and every quiet moment together. Emily often found herself thinking about the doctors and nurses who had saved her life and the life of her daughter. She felt a deep sense of gratitude toward them, knowing that without their skill and dedication, she might not be here today. She made a point to visit the hospital whenever she could, bringing Lily with her to thank the staff in person. Dr. Mitchell always greeted them with a warm smile, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the healthy, happy baby she had helped bring into the world. She would often take Lily into her arms, marveling at how far she had come since that day in the operating room. "She's a fighter, just like her mother," Dr. Mitchell would say, her voice filled with pride. Emily would smile, her heart swelling with love for her daughter and the incredible woman who had saved them both. She knew that they had been given a second chance, and she was determined to make the most of it. As the years passed, Emily and Daniel's love for each other only grew stronger. They faced the challenges of parenthood with grace and determination, always putting Lily's needs first. They watched with pride as their daughter grew into a bright, curious child, her laughter filling their home with joy. But they never forgot the miracle that had brought them together as a family. Every year, on the anniversary of Lily's birth, they would visit the hospital, bringing flowers and gifts for the staff who had saved their lives. It was their way of saying thank you, of honoring the incredible people who had given them a second chance. And as they looked back on that day, they knew that they had been given a gift more precious than anything in the world. They had been given the gift of life, and they were determined to live it to the fullest. For Emily, Daniel, and Lily, the future was bright, filled with endless possibilities. They had faced the darkest of times and emerged stronger, more united, and more grateful than ever before. And as they looked ahead, they knew that whatever challenges lay in store, they would face them together as a family. The story of Emily and Lily became a legend at St. Mercy Hospital, a tale of hope and resilience that inspired everyone who heard it. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, miracles could happen, and that love, above all else, was the most powerful force of all. And so as the years passed, the story of the young family who had defied the odds continued to be told, a beacon of hope for all those who found themselves facing the unimaginable. For Emily, Daniel, and Lily, it was a story of love, of second chances, and of the incredible power of the human spirit to overcome even the greatest of challenges. And as they looked to the future, they knew that their story was far from over. It was just beginning, a new chapter in a life filled with love, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. What an incredible journey of love, resilience, and second chances. If this story moved you, imagine how many more inspiring stories are waiting to be shared. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that touches the heart. Your support means the world and helps us bring you more incredible content. See you in the next one.